Good day, everyone. Welcome to today's visual culture lesson on socio-political art. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand what socio-political art is, in specific reference to resistance art. You should also be able to identify key characteristics that define this type of art. We will also learn how to analyze socio-political artworks by looking at the works from Jane Alexander. And then finally, you are going to use this knowledge to analyze your own chosen artists who deals with socio-political issues in their work. So, let's get started. Now, we are going to divulge into the world of art that pertains to political and social issues. Art has always played an important role in politics. From rulers in ancient Egypt and Rome who had grand statues of important leaders built to symbolize their hierarchical status, to paintings of Stalin portrayed in the light of the savior, and even propaganda posters of Hitler to influence the masses to form controlled ideologies. Now, in a more modern context, socio-political art was also used to shed light on specific historical events. As we can see at the top left corner, Picasso's Guernica painting depicts the tragedies of war and suffering inflicted on the innocent civilians during the Spanish Civil War. Socio-political art is also used to bring awareness of social issues, such as the inequality in gender rights. Here, at the bottom left, we can see the Guerrilla Girls have created posters that comment on the unequal imbalance of female artists, specifically in the Met Museum, and also the consequences of the female gaze. Now that we have gone through a few examples of artists who deal with social and political issues within their work, I want you to write down any artworks that you think are associated with political or social issues, and then try to find these characteristics that those artworks portray within the socio-political realm, and then tell me how would they impact societies. Now that we have researched our own understanding of socio-political art, we are going to look at the specific element of socio-political art known as resistance art, but we're going to look at it within a South African context. So during the time of apartheid, there were many acts of violence and oppressions that were inflicted on the black communities. Resistance art was used to portray the suppression and conditions during that particular time in order to evoke a sense of change to end racial segregation. The role of the artist also changed from being an isolated individual to one who was perceived as a cultural worker to advocate human rights through a variety of artistic means. The resistance artist that I have chosen to analyze in today's visual culture lesson is Jane Alexander. She was born in Johannesburg in 1959. She studied fine arts at the University of Witwatersrand, where she obtained her master's in fine arts degree in 1988. She was also chosen as the Standard Bank Young Artist of the Year in 1995. Alexander had won numerous awards for her work. She currently lives in Cape Town and lectures at the Michaelis School of Fine Arts. Jane Alexander was considered a highly influential resistance artist during the time of political unrest in South Africa. During the 1980s, she created artworks that reflected the historical period by exploring themes of violence within human society. Her subject matter is based on both the perpetrators and victims of violence. She uses allegorical images to portray suffering and promotes the ideal of alienation. She states that there is no underlying story behind her work, but rather invites the viewer to formulate their own conception. Alexander was also influenced by the American installation artist Edward Kienholz, who created full-scale environments of hospitalized human figures in order to represent the tragedy of mental illness. These figures appear as though they are placed within a holding cell. The artist also filled the air with that of a hospital smell to really immerse the audience into the experience of being hospitalized. Before I get into my analysis of Jane Alexander's work, I want you to look at the following artworks on the slide and answer these questions. Number 1, how would you describe her art style in your own words? Number 2, I want you to write down vocabulary that describe the sculpture's characteristics. And number 3, how do these artworks make you feel? Now we are going to analyze 2 artworks from Jane Alexander together. The first artwork we are looking at is called The Butcher Boys. This artwork represents the struggle of South Africa during the 1980s. It mainly deals with themes of mutilation, violence, and ambiguity. It symbolizes institutional violence by depicting both the executioners and the violent killers. It also serves as a commentary on the security police involvement in the death of Steve Biko. Now, let's describe how this installation artwork looks like. So, there are 3 life-size, lifelike plastic figures that are naked except for the genitalia, and they are sitting on a bench. These figures are extremely masculine, and they almost seem very powerful with their embodiment. But if we look closer at the image, we can see these bodies are actually quite damaged. Their gender is concealed by masking the genitalia with some sort of cricketer protection wear that is fused to their bodies. If we look closely, we can also see that there is bone inserted into the flesh in different forms. These bestialized figures represent hybrid creatures that are half human, half animal. They are mutilated in such a way that they have lost all sense of sight, smell, and hearing. This can be seen through the glazed, blackened eyes, the holes that were once ears, the flattened, distorted snout, and the concealed mouth. Being mutilated in such a way comments on these victims' involvement in some form of disaster. By losing these important senses, they become non-respondent to the external stimuli of the world. As we can also see, they are portrayed in a seating position, almost waiting longingly for something to happen. These eerie figures show us a sense of brutalization that is almost haunting. The themes and symbolism behind this installation are based on violence, aggression, cruelty, and suffering, and they are often juxtaposed to each other. For example, we have these figures as powerful, masculine men, yet they are helpless due to their characteristics. There's also a link to death based on the association of bones that are fused to their skulls. There are acts of unspeakable violence through mutilization and silencing of their victims. Their masculinity is also inhibited by being naked or castrated. And finally, these figures are associated with being meat in a butcher shop by presenting them as damaged, naked forms. Now that we have analyzed Jane Alexander's work together, I want you to create your own analysis. Basically, without looking at the previous slides, in your own words, I want you to summarize how The Butcher Boys portrays the themes and symbolisms of violence, aggression, cruelty, and suffering by analyzing the composition and characteristics of the 3 figures. Your summary needs to be 150 to 200 words. The next artwork we are going to look at by Jane Alexander is called Integration Program, Man with TV, which was created in 1995. It depicts a sculpture of a black man that is dressed in his Sunday best, sitting down on a chair that is staring vacantly into a television screen, and that television screen has a video that is playing a sequence repeatedly. The video is about a white man that is attempting to straighten his tie in the mirror while he is standing on a street. When he is done straightening his tie, he notices that something is wrong, and turns around and continues to straighten it once again. In this installation, the themes and symbolism that it embodies includes change, violence, racial integration, and racial discrimination. For example, the black man is in search of changing his lifestyle from a rural area to one that is more urbanized in the inner city. His search for a better life could also lead to victimization within the townships due to their lack of acceptance of his decision. Both the black and white communities are also unfamiliar with this new racial integration. This is portrayed within the installation by the black man looking very uncomfortable and out of place within the city environment. And the white man on the TV is also unsure of his decision and keeps questioning them and where he stands. This is based on the repeated sequence of him retying his tie. It also comments on the end of the systematic discrimination to provide equal rights to all races. Now that we have a firmer understanding of what socio-political art is in the context of South Africa, I want you to research your own socio-political South African artist and answer the following questions. Number 1, you need to describe the artist's background. Number 2, tell me what influenced his or her artwork or art development. It could be another artist or it could be an experience. Number 3, how does their work relate to the social or political issues or conditions within South Africa? And number 4, what are the themes or symbolisms behind his or her artworks? I really look forward to all your answers. Thank you very much for participating in today's lesson. Have a fantastic day.